could be buried below the surface of this ancient area is the key to understanding the very beginnings of humanity on this planet.
Some of the earliest credible accounts of the Giza Plateau and what could be underneath the Giza Plateau come from the Greek historian Herodotus. He compiled a record called the Histories of ancient civilizations, ancient cultures, ancient technologies that predate his time by thousands and thousands of years. And it was in his volume, The Histories, that Herodotus began to talk about Giza, and underneath Giza, beyond what the eye can see with the pyramids and the Sphinx and the temples during his time, he speculated that there were passages, there were chambers. Some of them were enhanced by humans at a time when this part of the world had a very, very different climate than what we have right now. In this location, that the remnants of the ancient civilizations, such as Atlantis, were able to store the records to be preserved for future generations. Following Herodotus, two men, Henry Salt and Giovanni, were able to survey the area with the technology that was available. Place not at the plateau, not at directly where the pyramids are, not directly where the Sphinx is, but on the edge of the plateau to a little known site that is now called the Tomb of the Birds.
That the Tomb of the Birds was venerated as the place of a bird god. We don't know what god, but it was most likely Thoth, the keeper of the hidden records, suggesting that this is the entrance that will eventually take us to the Hall of Records themselves. That overhead radar images that were taken by satellites very clearly tell us that there is a passage that goes all the way from the northeast corner of the plateau in the area of the Tomb of the Birds all the way to the second pyramid.
April 2008, when author and researcher Andrew Collins picked up the breadcrumbs of Henry Salt.
Myself and a Egyptological researcher by the name of Nigel Skinner Simpson decided that we would try and find Giza's cave underworld. And it took a while, but finally we found two vital pieces of evidence. One, that Colonel Howard Weiss, who with his engineer friend, John Shea Perry, investigated a previously unknown tomb in the exact area that we were interested in, which was the northwest corner of the plateau. So we investigated this site in 2007, and, it wasn't easy to get in there, but we investigated it and couldn't find anything initially. And then shortly after our return from Egypt, we found these old diary notes that had been written in 1817. British Consul General at the time, who was Henry Salt, and he employed the services of explorers. One of these was the Italian Giovanni Caviglia. And Caviglia, for instance, worked with Salt uncovering the sand around the Sphinx. But they also investigated the very area that we were in, and finding in there hewn chambers. And we realised that this was exactly the same location that we'd previously been to, that we were beginning to refer to under the name the Tomb of Birds, called 2008. And this time we looked harder and we found a small crack leading into this cave chamber, this huge, massive cave chamber. And at this point we came out and I wrote everything up, but we reported it immediately to the Egyptian authorities so that they were aware of everything that was happening. They initially denied that there was a cave system there and claimed that we'd simply gone into somewhere that was already known about. But just a few months after this, the head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, Dr. Zahi Hawass, was seen going into these same caves and saying that it was the best experience that he'd had at Giza. Overhead from satellites show us that these caves go beneath the second pyramid, and that they likely go into other parts of the plateau as well, possibly even beneath.
Head on a swivel and I'll never slack. Stay in your lane and don't go off track. People are starting to open their eyes. They can see through all the lies. Like a phoenix, we're gonna